Who will they choose? Welcome back, Nerd Squad. It's me, Amanda. They say love is blind, and sometimes that it makes it hard for you to see clearly who you should be with. Superheroes also evidently feel this, as is evident by the abundant amount of love triangles that exist in comics today. Today we'll talk about some of them as we count down the top 10 forbidden superhero love triangles. Which one's your favorite? Number 10. Sif, Thor, Jane Foster. Sif and Thor were a long-standing couple in the comics for years. However, when Thor was sent to Midgard to basically learn humility and become a hero worthy of his title and hammer, he ended up falling in love with Jane Foster. At one point, Thor even wanted to marry Jane, but Odin forbade it. It actually took a very long time and a lot of hard work on Jane's part for her to be accepted by Odin, and even then, this really only happened after she died, sacrificing herself to defend Asgard. So talk about it taking a lot. It's like her life. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love when we talk about love here on the channel, be sure to let us know by clicking that subscribe button. We check and we can see when people subscribe when they watch a video, and it'll show us that you love us. Number 9. Green Arrow, Black Canary, Batman. I bet you weren't expecting him in the mix. Green Arrow and Black Canary are a couple that are known for being very solid in the comics. When I think about forever couples, they're probably one of the few people that I think of when it comes to DC Comics. So, what happened? What's the tea? How did Batman wind up at this point, being the other person that's involved in this relationship? How did they become a part of my forbidden love triangle club here? Well, there was a time way back in Justice League of America issue number 84 from the first volume and issue number 88 when Batman and Black Canary kind of almost became a thing. This happened during a moment of vulnerability and weakness when Black Canary felt lonely, and Batman, who is pretty much always lonely, let's be honest, chose to comfort her. They kissed in an instant in issue number 84, but then by issue 88, it was firmly established that Black Canary actually chose Green Arrow after weirdly going to Batman for advice on whether or not she should stay with Ollie and commit or just split. Although Batman honestly seemed a bit brokenhearted when he learned where Canary's head was at, to be honest. He was like, "You always thought of me as a brother, but you kissed me." Wait, what? Weird times. Number 8. Vision, Scarlet Witch, Wonder Man. Scarlet Witch has had a turbulent dating history, to say the least, and to top it all off in terms of all the weirdness involved in her romantic life, the two men who she most often finds herself stuck between choosing actually share the same brain waves. Vision, the android, was actually created with his brain patterns based off of Wonder Man. So when she later was no longer with Vision and she ended up with Simon, it did make sense, but it also didn't make it any less awkward, because I mean, it's kind of like moving from one person to someone that's like almost the same, at least in terms of their brain. Though Vision himself also created his own android wife, Virginia, using Wanda's brain patterns to do so. So both characters seem to have a very specific type, which seems to be each other. Number 7. Wolverine, Jean Grey, Cyclops. A modern day love triangle, if ever I have seen one. At times, Jean has been tempted by Wolverine, but for the most part I'd say she's pretty loyal and is consistently depicted as being more head over heels in love with Scott Summers. Like, Scott's like her main squeeze, and then sometimes, every now and then, her and Wolverine have a thing. Personally, I remember this love triangle the best from the 90s animated series. In that version of the story, it always felt to me that Wolverine really wanted to have a relationship with Jean, but she was actively resistant, despite definitely having feelings for Logan, while Cyclops was very defensive and protective of Jean and his relationship. Not a great look, if I'm being honest, Scott. A little overprotective was kind of how Scott usually came across to me as a kid watching this show. However, that being said, Wolverine and Jean have had their moments in the comics, and there has definitely been long-running will they won't they vibes between them. Lately though, this love triangle has actually become much less forbidden, as they seem to be more of a bona fide throuple lately. Just look at the floor plan for the Summers house on the blue area of the moon, and you're gonna see what I'm talking about. I'm just saying. There's some connecting rooms that are interesting. Number 6. Black Cat, Spider-Man, Mary Jane. A constant love triangle that is still ongoing even today, and was still somehow ongoing even when Peter was married to MJ. Mary Jane was a family friend, the niece of Aunt May's friend Anna Watson. For a good while, Aunt May hyped up MJ, and her appearance was actually teased constantly in the comics, till one issue when finally Peter and readers would actually get to meet Mary Jane, with MJ speaking one of the lines she has become the most famous for in this first appearance: "You just hit the jackpot." Black Cat, on the other hand, is someone that Peter met not while in his civilian identity of Peter Parker, but while in his superhero persona of Spider-Man. Initially, it also seemed like Felicia Hardy's Black Cat was a bit older than Peter, with her being shocked when she first kissed him and afterward realized that there was a bit of an age difference between them. However, despite this, and despite Black Cat being a thief and less clearly defined when it came to her alignment, a relationship would later blossom between the two. It wouldn't work out and Peter would ultimately end up married to MJ until their marriage was traded in a bargain with Mephisto in exchange for Aunt May's life. For a while, Black Cat competed for Peter's attention, even when he was married, attempting to make him jealous by dating his former adversary turned close friend, Flash Thompson. True story. Number 5. Speedy, Wonder Girl, The Flash. This was a rough one. Wonder Girl and Speedy were pretty much an item for some time in the comics. Not really official though at this point that we're talking about in the 2016 Titans series. However, it seemed like they were making strides in their relationship, with Speedy even like getting hyped to confirm his commitment to Donna when he found her kissing Wally West's The Flash. Wally was really the only one to remember his life before the New 52 reset, including his married life with Linda and their kids together. But Linda didn't remember him, and after trying to make a connection with her, he was shot down. But Donna was there to pick up the pieces. Ultimately, Donna and Wally would only have a very brief romance, with Donna ultimately deciding to commit to Speedy instead, and Wally later ending back up with Linda and eventually saving his kids who were trapped in the dark multiverse. So kinda all worked out in the end. Although I don't think Donna and Speedy are together now. It worked for a bit for them. Number 4. Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, Namor. I've always found this love triangle to be very interesting because I really do think Mr. Fantastic and Namor are pretty fitting partners for Sue Storm, like both of them are. This is also just one of those love triangles where Sue is very set in her relationship with her husband Reed, but where I feel, despite their marital bliss, the threat of Namor splitting them up feels very real because Namor is like a pretty reasonable threat to Reed. In most cases, there is a relationship outcome in the love triangle I prefer, and it's very rare when I feel like both partners suit the person who is considered to be the most desired member of said triangle, the top point if you will, what I like to call them, like people are looking up. I love that person. But with this one, I can see Sue being with either Reed or Namor, and it could work. So it's really quite a nail biter whenever she feels a pull towards ending her marriage and possibly leaving Reed for the Submariner. Feels like a real threat. Number 3. Mary Jane, Spider-Man, Gwen Stacy. While Black Cat and MJ and Spider-Man are a more popular love triangle in the modern day comics, initially Peter was actually kind of stuck between a different choice when it came to the women in his life. MJ was still around doing her thing and being super charismatic, having a lot of fun, and was usually the center of attention. But despite this, a different young woman managed to win over Pete's heart at the time, the studious and sweet Gwen Stacy. Gwen was Peter's first love, and despite the fact that, like everyone, he thought MJ was attractive, Pete really only had eyes for Gwen at the time. Still, there were elements of a will they, won't they dynamic to Peter and MJ's relationship even before Gwen suffered her tragic fate. Although for the most part, the four friends were usually matched up as such. Peter's best friend Harry Osborn with MJ and Peter with Gwen. And then sometimes Flash was also hanging around as kind of a fifth wheel, but I believe he also thought MJ was like an attractive person, so I think Flash was also kind of like, maybe I could be with MJ, but no. Number 2. Catwoman, Batman, Talia al Ghul. Well, some people don't like to think of Batman and Talia al Ghul as having a romantic history because of, well, some very awful things that Talia did to Batman. You know what I'm talking about. Honestly, terrible. The reality is she has been a romantic partner of his on and off for years. Like the Joker and Harley Quinn, they don't really have the healthiest relationship, which is often why most people prefer Batman with Catwoman. However, that doesn't mean that these two haven't competed for Batman's attention, and that they haven't both been pretty big contenders, I'd say. Although I think hands down, Catwoman does win that romantic fight almost any day of the week. I'm definitely in the camp of Catwoman and Batman together. Forever. Number 1. Deadpool, Death, Thanos. Most people know the unrequited love between Thanos and Death, or Mistress Death as she is sometimes known, but did you know that Deadpool also had a thing with Death for a while? It's true. Deadpool has actually been shown as wanting to end his life multiple times, and so of course he is also enamored with Death. And in fact, she actually probably prefers him to Thanos, if you can believe it. Which honestly, I can believe it. I feel like Deadpool is way more fun. Would rather date him than Thanos for sure. Thanos was actually so jealous of their relationship that he cursed Wade at one point to be unable to die just to keep him from death. So very serious competition there. That's about it. Until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.